The story begins with a high school student named Yuji Itadori waking up in a daze strapped in a chair. A blindfolded man, Satoru Gojo, says to him, "You don't have time to worry about others because your secret execution has been set." Rewind to the previous day, Yuji is checking on his grandfather as he is demanding Yuji to stay in his school club. That night, a student from Jujutsu Tech, Megumi Fushiguro, is visiting Sugisawa High to find a cursed object. Failing to do so, he calls Satoru Gojo only to be told that he can't return without the object. At Yuji's club with Iguchi and Sasaki, the student council president is threatening to close the occult club due to inactivity. They tell the president that something supernatural is happening that is affecting the students on the rugby field. The president, denying their argument, says the illness is being caused by ticks. Yuji is not actually registered with his occult club, which causes the track coach to ask Yuji to help in conquering nationals, and they agree to have a throwing competition. The coach throws an impressive 14 meters, while Yuji casually throws the ball 30 meters, setting a new world record. Meanwhile, Megumi is searching for the cursed object. He sees Yuji dominating and silently acknowledges that he's amazing. Yuji walks past Megumi and he notices cursed energy emanating from Yuji, a possible connection to the cursed object he is looking for. Yuji is rushing to the hospital before Megumi can confront him. In the hospital, Yuji's grandfather is not happy. He is telling Yuji to use his gifts to save others. Shortly after Yuji's grandfather dies, Yuji is filled with sadness. He mourns, packs up his things and is filling out the paperwork. Megumi enters the hospital and confronts him, asks him to hand over the cursed object and reveals the truth about curses. Yuji is handing over the box, but it's empty. Yuji is telling him that the object is in the hands of the other occult club members who are planning to remove the seal tonight. Megumi is shocked, and Yuji inquires about the severity of removing the seal. Megumi replies saying Yuji's friends are going to die. At Sugisawa High, Sasaki and Iguchi are unwrapping the seal. They find a finger, and curses begin to spawn. Upon arriving at school, Yuji is concerned about his friends and Megumi is asking him to stay behind. Sasaki is hiding from the monsters. Iguchi appears beside her, but his head is taken over by a small curse. A larger curse attacks Sasaki from behind. Megumi enters, and by using his jujutsu he defends himself from the curses, summoning his divine dogs and commanding them to feast on the enemies. Meanwhile, Yuji is remembering his grandfather's words about helping others. The number of curses are growing as Megumi and his divine dogs are cutting through them to rescue students. Megumi realizes that he won't make it in time, but Yuji crashes in through the window. Yuji rescues the students, allowing Megumi's dogs to devour the curse. Megumi compliments Yuji for his help and Yuji inquires about Megumi's dogs. Turns out they are something called Shikigami. As Megumi is going to capture the cursed object, Ryomen Sukuna's finger, a curse suddenly crashes down. As Megumi pushes Yuji out of the way, a curse captures him. He is attempting to summon another Shikigami, but the curse tosses him out. Due to injury, his divine dogs are dispelled. Before the curse can kill Megumi, Yuji jumps into the fight, but he cannot hurt the curse without cursed energy. Yuji nearly drops the finger into the curse's mouth, but he's able to catch it with his own mouth and eats the savory snack to gain cursed energy. Yuji now has the power of Ryomen Sukuna and kills the curse easily. Megumi beings to worry that Ryomen Sukuna is reborn along with his desire to kill all of humanity. However, Yuji manages to gain control over his body by suppressing Sukuna. Megumi prepares to summon a Shikigami and says he will expel the cursed energy in Yuji Itadori. As he is deciding to exorcise Yuji, Yuji raises his arms saying that he's in control. He says they both need to go to the hospital. Before Megumi answers, Megumi's sensei Satoru Gojo arrives. Megumi reveals to him that Yuji ate the finger, which Gojo is finding hard to believe. Gojo, examining Yuji, realizes that he has combined with Sukuna. Gojo decides to check Yuji's control, asking him to switch to Sukuna for 10 seconds. Megumi holds his Kikufuki, a Sendai specialty, and Gojo holds Megumi back while Yuji is allowing Sukuna to take control. Sukuna attacks, but Gojo easily dodges all of the attacks. With Megumi watching, Gojo is showing off by hitting several attacks on Sukuna. Sukuna claims that Jujutsu sorcerers are troublesome in every era and tries to finish the fight. Gojo repels the rubble made by Sukuna and counts down the final seconds until Yuji regains control. Gojo decides to knock him out and tells Megumi that if Yuji can wake himself up, then he has real potential as a vessel. Megumi knows that Yuji should be executed, but Megumi requests to his teacher not to allow that. Gojo promises that he will fulfill his request. Yuji is bound to a chair in a room filled with seals. Gojo explains that according to the decision of elders, Yuji must be executed, but he was able to plead his case and his execution is suspended. Yuji can control Sukuna, therefore, he can be used to consume all 20 delicious fingers of Sukuna. Satoru Gojo presents him with two options. Yuji can either be executed right now or learn to be a Jujutsu sorcerer and consume the 20 fingers, and then be executed. Later, Yuji visits Sasaki and Igachi in the hospital. Sasaki blames herself as they are sitting by Iguchi's bed. Despite the doctors believing that Iguchi is in stable condition, he is still unconscious. Yuji, explaining the situation, blames himself for everything. Before leaving, he assures Sasaki that a sorcerer will come to heal Iguchi. Outside the hospital, Yuji meets with Gojo, asking him about the casualties involving curses. Gojo reveals that people are lucky to die a normal death after encountering a curse. The two are traveling to the morgue. Yuji collects his grandfather's ashes and swallows the second finger. Gojo is awaiting as Yuji is struggling with what appears to be Sukuna's influence. However, Yuji is only struggling with the grossness of the finger and proves that he can control Sukuna. Yuji decides that he needs to learn how to fight curses and help obtain all of Sukuna's fingers. Following Yuji's decision, Yuji travels with Gojo to the mountain where the Tokyo Metropolitan Jujutsu Technical School resides. Turns out it is disguised as a religious private school, but it is a base of operations of all Jujutsu sorcerers. Before Yuji can be accepted into school, he has an interview with the principal. As they are walking, Sukuna creates a mouth on Yuji's skin and threatens Gojo, saying that he will kill him after taking over Yuji. Gojo says it's an honor to be targeted by the King of Curses. In a dojo, the principal Masamichi Yaga is creating cute puppets. Yuji introduces himself, and the principal asks why he wants to join Jujutsu Tech. Yaga is not satisfied with Yuji's answers and attacks Yuji by using his cursed puppets to get an acceptable answer. He is doing all of this to make Yuji realize more about himself. The dolls begin a second wave of attacks, while Yaga is asking him again why he wants to enroll in Jujutsu Tech. Yuji, grabbing and holding the doll down with all his strength, explains that he must stop Sukuna if he wants to live a life without regrets. Yaga finds the answer impressive and accepts him into the school. Gojo, taking Yuji to his dorm, asks him if he is ready to fight. They exit the dorm and find Megumi, who is disappointed that Yuji will be living so close. Gojo reveals that he will take both of them to Mirioka Station tomorrow. They are going to pick up the third first-year student, Nobara Kugisaki. Nobara Kugisaki arrives in Tokyo. She is thinking about someone important to her, Saori. While Megumi and Yuji are waiting for her at the train station in Harajuku, Yuji is wondering why their class is so small, to which Megumi explains that the new student's acceptance was granted a while ago, and Jujutsu students are pretty rare. Gojo arrives, complimenting Yuji on his new uniform. Nobara notices a man scouting out models, and she asks him what he thinks about her. He is scared of her, and she grabs him, telling him to tell her what he really thinks. Yuji thinks she's embarrassing, and Gojo calls out for her in his blindfold. She puts her things in a locker, and after that she introduces herself and says the boys are lucky to have her as the woman in their group. Yuji and Megumi are introducing themselves to Nobara, but she isn't impressed. Gojo explains to them they will take a tour of Tokyo, and the group gets excited. But he brings them to an abandoned building close to a cemetery where a curse has taken over. Nobara feels grossed out after learning that Yuji swallowed Sukuna's finger, and Gojo reveals to Yuji and Nobara that this is their test. Gojo gives a knife named Slaughter Demon to Yuji and restricts him from using Sukuna's power. He explains that their task is to eliminate all the curses. Yuji and Nobara enter the building. Megumi wants to join them, but Gojo stops him by saying that this test is for Nobara. They head inside and begin the search together. Nobara is ordering Yuji to go downstairs and she will go upstairs, but Yuji disagrees. She storms off by kicking Yuji away. While Yuji is confused by her attitude, a cursed spirit attacks him from above. Acting quickly, he slices apart the curse with his cursed tool. Meanwhile, Gojo believes that Yuji is somewhat crazy, but that in order to become an effective sorcerer, a necessary amount of craziness is required. He is just testing how crazy Nobara is. Nobara comes face to face with a cursed corpse. She pierces the face of the corpse using her hammer and nails. The cursed corpse is standing in front of Nobara, but its head is destroyed by Nobara's nails as cursed energy flows through them. Nobara finds a small child hiding. The boy refuses to come out, and Nobara notices another curse. The curse shows his intelligence by taking the boy hostage. Nobara weighs her options and thinks she should be the one to survive and sacrifice the boy, but instead tries to protect the boy by surrendering. In what she thinks are her final moments, she thinks of her friend Saori. Sudden while eye, Yuji punches down the wall and frees the boy by cutting off the arm of the curse. The curse attempts to flee, but Nobara uses her straw doll technique on the severed arm and exorcises the curse. Nobara then reveals that her friend Saori was outcast by the people of her village because she came from Tokyo. She wants to get back at those people. That's why she enrolled in Jujutsu Tech, so she could come to Tokyo. Yuji, despite being confused, accepts her motivation. She hopes to meet Saori again. Nobara thanks Yuji for his help. They return the boy to his home and Gojo offers them dinner as their reward. Nobara orders Yuji to get her things from her coin locker in Harajuku. Yuji refuses, but Nobara continues to yell at him. Yuji looks at Megumi for backup, but he's too busy on his phone. During the next month, the 3 Jujutsu students are called out to exorcise a cursed womb, but one of them dies in the said event. Kiyotaka Ijichi brings the first year's Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara to a detention center where a cursed womb has been spotted. The 5 detainees remaining inside detainee block 2 can potentially spawn a special grade cursed spirit. Upon Yuji asking about the special grade, Ijichi warns them about what to do when encountering a special grade. They have only 2 options: either run or die. Their mission is to rescue the survivors. A distraught mother is asking them to save their son. Yuji says that they must save everyone. Ijichi is casting a curtain barrier, concealing them from the outside world, while Megumi summons his divine dogs to warn them when a curse approaches. They enter inside a curse's domain. Yuji and Nobara are panicking, but Megumi is confident that his divine dogs will smell any threats. They move and find bodies trapped inside. Among them, Yuji finds Tadashi, the son of the distressed woman. He wants to bring him outside, but Megumi refuses and says that he is a detainee in this juvenile detention center. He doesn't need to be saved. Yuji counters him and asks Megumi why he saved him in the first place. Nobara yells at both of them to stop, but suddenly gets dragged by the curse. Megumi is confused, wondering why his divine dogs didn't sense the threat, and he realizes that his dogs have been killed. Megumi says they need to run, but the special cursed spirit appears in front of them. Both of them are paralyzed by fear, but Yuji attacks the spirit with his knife. He loses his hand, and the knife is now broken. Meanwhile, Nobara is surrounded by masks in a strange area. Megumi flees the area looking for Nobara using Nue. Before Megumi ran away, Yuji asked for Sukuna's help, telling Megumi he will distract the cursed spirit until they make it out. Megumi is shocked by the powers of the special grade cursed spirit and listens to Yuji. Megumi is rushing to find her with his other divine dogs while Yuji is getting punished by the enemy. He can't hold back the spirit's surge of energy, he's too weak. Elsewhere, Megumi is able to save Nobara just before she was about to be devoured by the curses. Yuji realizes that he will not have a proper death and about to die. He begins to cry. This makes him realize that he can use his negative feelings on his fist. He charges toward the spirit with a fist reinforced by cursed energy and strikes it. The special grade catches Yuji's punch, but he was able to buy enough time for Megumi to escape with Nobara. The divine dog howls, signaling to Yuji that he can unleash Sukuna. Megumi stays outside with Ijichi and asks him to bring back a grade 1 sorcerer to help, and he will stay here to deal with Yuji if Sukuna's rampage lasts too long. Sukuna takes control over Yuji's body and thinks about the best way to get back at Yuji. He decides to put the situation back to the way it was, but the special grade, refusing to work with him, attacks him. Sukuna stops his attack while healing Yuji's arm, and believes that the curse has chosen its death. Sukuna overpowers him and put an end to any ideas of it getting proud of itself. He shows both Yuji and the curse what real Jujutsu is by activating his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, and slices the curse into pieces, allowing Sukuna to take back his finger which had spawned the cursed womb. Sukuna is irritated that he's been used by Yuji. He demands Yuji to take back control, but he doesn't answer. Sukuna laughs in an evil manner, realizing that Yuji can't switch back. Megumi notices that the cursed womb's innate domain has disappeared. He is waiting for Yuji, but Sukuna arrives to tell him that this won't be happening. Sukuna blames Yuji for overusing his powers. He also says that Yuji cannot switch back, and in order to prevent him from taking control, he rips out Yuji's heart. Sukuna now has full control over the body, and switching back will result in death. Sukuna eats another one of his fingers to strengthen his control. He prepares to kill Megumi. Megumi says to Sukuna that Yuji will switch back even if it means taking his own life. Sukuna argues by saying that Yuji is just a coward. Megumi, ignoring his words, notices that Sukuna can use the reverse cursed technique since his arm is healed. He plans to fight Sukuna, believing that he is weaker without a heart, and can force Sukuna to heal Yuji's heart. Megumi begins by summoning his Nue and engaging in close combat with Sukuna. Sukuna plays with Megumi until Megumi unleashes Orochi and lifts him into the air, where Nue strikes him repeatedly. Sukuna destroys the Great Serpent, and by using the open space he throws Megumi without using any kind of power or Jujutsu. Sukuna is overpowering him and Megumi is forced to release his Nue. Sukuna is quite impressed by Megumi's techniques. Sukuna asks him why he chose to run instead of standing against the cursed womb. Megumi recalls how his sister was treated unfairly and how his father left him. Megumi doesn't believe in karma and nobody gets to enjoy true fairness. Therefore, that is why Megumi will save people unequally based on his own convictions. Megumi saved Yuji because he didn't want to see a good person die and believes that he's a sorcerer, not a hero, finishing their conversation from before. Yuji listens to Megumi from inside and takes back control of his body. Blood pours out of Yuji's chest and Yuji collapses due to his wounds and tells his friend to live a long life. In Tokyo, 4 mysterious figures are walking and discussing why one of the sorcerers used a Sukuna finger to test Sukuna's strength. They were the ones who spawned the special grade curse. They stroll into a cafe where everyone only sees the man despite the cursed company he has. Meanwhile, Gojo meets with Ijichi in the school morgue. Gojo believes that Yuji was set up by the higher-ups and they purposely sent Sukuna's vessel on a dangerous mission. Gojo is feeling irritated and threatens to kill all the higher-ups. A school doctor, Shoko Leiri, arrives and is surprised to see Gojo so emotional. She asks permission to dissect Yuji's body and Gojo asks her to make good use of him. Megumi and Nobara, saddened by Yuji's death, are sitting on the stairs together. The second-year Jujutsu students arrive and find them sulking. Maki asks why they're looking so glum, but Panda reveals to her that their classmate died, and now she thinks she came off as cold-hearted. Panda says that's exactly how she came off, and Toge says Tuna and Mayo. Megumi introduces them as Maki Zenin, Toge Inumaki and Panda. Megumi mentions another second year named Yuta Okotsu, but he's studying overseas. Nobara is annoyed that he doesn't add more about the panda named Panda. Panda apologizes for Maki's rudeness and asks that they participate in the Kyoto Sister School exchange event. Since the third year students are suspended, Tokyo High needs more participants. The second years explains that this event is a battle between schools where sorcerers fight against one another. In order to get stronger for Yuji, both the first years agree to participate. Elsewhere, the unknown sorcerer and cursed spirits are meeting. The curses explain that they want to gain the dominant position the humans have. They're asking how they can defeat Jujutsu sorcerers. The man says, in order to go to war, they need to render Satoru Gojo unable to fight and make Sukuna their ally. The curses believe that Yuji is dead, but the sorcerer is not sure. Somewhere inside the residuals of Yuji's soul, Sukuna is looking down on him. Sukuna is pleased with himself and sits atop a mountain of skulls, telling Yuji not to look up without permission. Yuji replies that Sukuna should come down. Yuji begins fighting against Sukuna but is quickly overwhelmed. Sukuna explains to him that they are in a suspended state of existence within Sukuna's mind. Sukuna wants to make a deal with Yuji to fix his heart and places 2 conditions. The first condition is he can use his body after using a key phrase, and the second is Yuji will forget about this conversation. Yuji refuses to lend his body, but Sukuna promises to not hurt anyone. Yuji does not believe that Sukuna will fulfill his side of the deal. Sukuna further explains, saying a promise made with Jujutsu cannot be broken or else Sukuna will be punished. Yuji refuses and demands him to bring him back to life without any conditions. Sukuna offers a fight to the death to decide which way Yuji will come back to life. Yuji agrees and Sukuna instantly bisects Yuji's head. Gojo meets Ijichi and says he's not a good teacher. However, To change the broken foundations of the Jujutsu community, he wants to train strong allies to fight against the curses in the future. He believes students like the second-year Okotsu and the third-year Hikari have enough potential. Gojo feels the loss of Yuji as he had the potential to be on par with Gojo himself. As Shoko is preparing to dissect Yuji's body, he suddenly comes back to life. Gojo is happy to see him and wholesomely high-fives him. Gojo asks Shoko to leave Yuji deceased on record to avoid anyone making an attempt to kill him again. Gojo plans to train Yuji privately to get him ready for the exchange event. In a diner where the mysterious sorcerer Suguru Geto and the cursed spirits are, a waiter senses a dangerous presence. The volcano-cursed spirit Jogo wants to know what would happen if his team of curses tries to kill Gojo. Geto believes that Gojo will exorcise all of them. He recommends that they use a special-grade cursed object, Prison Realm, in order to seal him, not kill him. Jogo feels excited. The waiter, sensing the danger, quits his job and flees instantly. His boss greets Geto for his order but catches fire instantly. Within a few seconds, everyone else catches fire as well. Jogo claims that he will take Prison Realm for himself and will kill Gojo in return. At Jujutsu High, Megumi arrives to train with other students. He and Nobara are training to get better at close combat, while Gojo trains Yuji to control his cursed energy. Gojo explains the differences between cursed energy and a cursed technique by using cans. The first can is blasted with pure cursed energy, while the second is twisted by using a cursed technique. Yuji believes that he's about to learn a cursed technique, but this is not possible as sorcerers are born with innate techniques. Gojo wants to improve Yuji's fighting style with Jujutsu by having him channel cursed energy into his fists. Yuji believes that he succeeded in it in his last fight, but he is not able to show it. Gojo explains to him that it is important for sorcerers to control their negative emotions. To teach this, Gojo is going to have Yuji watch movies. His training involves pouring just enough cursed energy into another one of the principal's dolls while watching the movies. If Yuji doesn't fill the cursed corpse with energy, it will attack him. As movies are meant to draw out all kinds of emotions, his goal is to maintain the steady flow of cursed energy. Back at school, Megumi asks Maki how he can use weapons alongside his cursed technique. He is thinking about his exchange with Sukuna, which makes him realize that he can keep cursed tools within his own shadow. Meanwhile, Nobara is shopping for a new tracksuit, and Yuji is still watching movies. Gojo reminds him to focus harder before leaving to meet the principal of Kyoto Jujutsu High. Gojo asks him if he spoke with Sukuna, but Yuji doesn't remember. Ijichi drives Gojo toward Kyoto. Gojo notices a disturbance and gets out of the car, telling Ijichi to drive off alone. Gojo stays in the middle of the freeway until Jogo crashes down in front of him. Gojo dodges and casually asks who he is, but Jogo creates a volcano that blasts Satoru with a volcanic explosion from behind. Jogo believes that Gojo is dead and that it was so easy to get rid of him. However, he is shocked to see that the volcanic explosion didn't even scratch Gojo. The sorcerer warns him by asking him if he really thought it would be that easy and that he copied his name. He then swiftly wipes away the ash and fire around him. Gojo is quite surprised to meet a curse that is able to communicate clearly, and he believes that Jogo currently surpasses Sukuna, meaning that this Jogo is an unregistered special grade curse. Satoru tells Jogo that special grades cannot keep popping out of nowhere or it ruins their rank. He means that special grades are supposed to be rare, and if they keep popping out of nowhere, their rank loses value and doesn't make them as fearsome. The cursed spirit suggests that Gojo is giving up, but he doesn't know that Gojo is just getting started. He was just toying with the curse. Satoru realizes that Jogo chose to attack away from a populated area so that other sorcerers cannot back him up. Jogo uses ember insects to attack the sorcerer, but Gojo stops them as they are about to reach him. He wonders what might happen if the insects touch him. Gojo hears a sound and insects begin to explode. Gojo is easily able to avoid them, but he appreciates this two-step attack. However, Jogo acts quickly and strikes Gojo with 2 more flaming attacks and kicks him in the stomach. Once again, Jogo believes that he has won the battle, but he realizes that none of his attacks had an effect on the sorcerer. Jogo is confused and asks what's happening. Since none of his attacks are working, he is feeling quite anxious and frustrated. Gojo says that he was not able to touch him. Jogo believes that he touched him and felt it. Gojo states that he was only able to touch the infinity that exists between them, showing him that their hands can't touch no matter how much the curse power pushes him forward. Gojo begins to taunt him by holding his hands like a boy and a girl about to make love. Gojo then pummels Jogo with his Jujutsu and finishes his combo of attacks by unleashing the divergence and convergence of the Infinity Curse Technique Reversal, Red. This high-energy attack sends Jogo tumbling through the forest where Gojo continues to attack him before kicking him into a nearby lake. Jogo recalls that Geto, the sorcerer from the diner, was right when he said Jogo would die if he tried to kill Gojo. Suddenly, Gojo disappears from the lake. Gojo decides to bring Yuji to the battlefield so he can learn about the pinnacle of Jujutsu battles, Domain Expansion. Yuji is Sukuna's vessel, the strongest curse in the world. He teleports to Yuji and brings him to Jogo's location. Jogo has no idea where Yuji came from, but realizes that Sukuna's vessel is really alive, just as Geto predicted. Gojo explains to the curse that his student will be watching in order to learn from this fight. Jogo suggests the sorcerer is a fool for bringing someone who would hold him back, but Gojo mocks him by saying that this won't matter because the curse is too weak. After all, he was not able to even touch Gojo despite his efforts. Jogo is enraged and spews flames from each of the volcanic holes on his head. It looks like Jogo is going to use all of his power, and Yuji is scared, wondering if this curse is more powerful than any of the monsters he has ever encountered. But Gojo assures him that he will be okay as long as he stays close. Jogo activates his domain expansion, trapping the sorcerers inside the coffin of the Iron Mountain. Domain expansion enhances the user's abilities, and inspires the user's innate techniques as well. The abilities used within a domain expansion always hit their target. Gojo explains that the automatic hit within a domain expansion can be repelled by countering with a cursed technique or by escaping the domain, but neither of these methods is recommended. You might try to run away and get hit in the back. Jogo knows that this technique will diminish the infinity protection of Gojo. The curse is not happy because he was outsmarted and looked down on by a human despite his strength. At the same time, Gojo tells Yuji that the most effective way to counter domain expansion is by casting a domain themselves. Jogo attempts to attack Gojo, but Gojo activates domain expansion, Unlimited Void, which traps Jogo in a space that feeds him all of the information in the universe at once, therefore paralyzing him. Jogo is immobilized, so Gojo decapitates him and dispels the barrier. He attempts to interrogate Jogo to get information about him and who sent him. Meanwhile, Geto and Hanami are watching them from afar. Geto can't afford to be seen, so he leaves Hanami to handle the situation alone. Before Gojo is able to get information from the curse or exorcise him, a plant pierces the ground near Gojo and spawns a field of flowers. This distracts Yuji and Gojo. The distraction is long enough for a wooden monster to attack Gojo. The small gap in time allows Hanami to grab Jogo's head and disappear completely. Gojo is impressed with his ability to hide his presence. Yuji apologizes for letting them get away so easily, and Gojo replies that he wants all of his students and Yuji to become so strong that they are able to exorcise such powerful curses. Yuji is concerned about this, but Satoru says he's so glad he brought him since Yuji now has a concrete goal. Yuji is still concerned and says he still doesn't even understand what was going on and wonders, is this guy serious? Gojo decides that he will speed up Yuji's training. Yuji will train with Gojo and go on several harder missions to prepare for the upcoming exchange event. Yuji then raises his hand and asks what the exchange event is, because he was dead when the exchange event was discussed and Satoru forgot to tell him. Back at the school, Principal Yaga is not happy with Ijichi because Gojo is late for their meeting. Meanwhile, Geto returns to the curse's hideout. It is a domain hidden behind an apartment door. He meets up with the leaders and Mahito asks about Jogo. Hanami then walks in holding Jogo's head. Mahito says he's happy that they are safe. Geto tells Jogo that they will carry out Gojo's sealing on October 31st in Shibuya. Mahito agrees with him and says that they must be cunning about it. Somewhere on the Tokyo Jujutsu high grounds, the first-year students Megumi and Nobara run errands for the second-year Maki Zenin. In another area, the second-year students Panda, Maki and Toge Inumaki are having a discussion. Panda is worried about the meeting with the Kyoto school's principal. Maki believes that the principal won't pull anything out of the blue, but that's not what Panda is worried about. He is worried because he may have brought students that may try to pick a fight with the first years. At the vending machines, Aoi Todo and Mai Zenin confront Megumi and Nobara. They arrive and claim they're checking on them since their classmate died. Mai begins to taunt them and mocks their dead friend Yuji, which irritates both of the first years. Aoi is not interested in this at all, and claims he only came here to confirm whether the Yuta Okotsu's replacements will be entertaining. Todo takes his shirt off and asks Megumi what kind of girls he likes, and claims depending on the answer, he'll beat him half to death. Todo admirably declares that his type of woman is tall with a big butt. Megumi doesn't want to discuss his taste in women with a man he just met, and Nobara says that it's too hard for an introvert like Megumi to discuss such things. Todo believes the kinds of women a person likes says a lot about them. If they don't have good taste, then they're boring people, and Todo doesn't like boring people. He looks forward to the Goodwill event, and he can't accept that it might turn out boring. He demands an answer from Megumi. Megumi has a flashback of his sister and says that as long as a person is compassionate, then he doesn't need anything else. He wants to avoid the fight, but the Rock is not satisfied with his answer. He tells Megumi that he's boring and immediately attacks him. Nobara wants to help Megumi, but Mai holds her back by wrapping her arms around her from behind. Mai claims that Megumi won't stand a chance against Todo. Nobara claims that even though Maki and Mai are sisters, Mai is less attractive, which angers Mai. Todo hits Megumi all the way outside and says that the boy has trampled all over his kindness. Megumi recognizes Aoi Todo's name for being the sorcerer who exorcised all the curses in the night parade of 100 demons from Shinjuku to Kyoto. Megumi also remembers that he didn't use any of his innate techniques to defeat 5 grade 1 and 1 special grade curse. Todo denies this rumor and reveals that he did use his innate technique against the special grade, shocking Megumi. Megumi is bleeding and combines Nue with his toads to create winged toads from his bottomless well technique. However, Todo easily counters this technique and brutalizes Megumi with his pure force. The toads were able to slow him down, but it wasn't enough. After being brutally punished, Megumi stands up and says that while he had no intention to fight, he'll show him what he's capable of. Todo runs towards Megumi with full force, and as Megumi is about to use his other technique, Panda and Togi arrive. Toad uses his cursed speech to slow down Todo while Pando punches him backwards and saves Megumi. Panda tells him to leave before he decides to scream, "No." Before taking off, Todo tells the second years to give Yuta Okotsu a message. He wants Yuta to take part in the exchange event. Yuta is also a second-year student at Jujutsu High. Meanwhile, Nobara is on the ground after being shot by Mai. Mai tells her that she should pick her fights better. Maki arrives to help and the two sisters begin to argue. Nobara gets up and attacks Mai using Maki as a distraction. Nobara demands that Mai hand over her summer uniform, but Todo arrives and tells Mai that they are leaving. She says that she's just getting started, but Todo wants to go because he has tickets to shake the hand of his favorite pop star, Takada-chan. As they leave, Mai says to Nobara, "You won't get off this easy at the exchange event." Nobara and Maki walk together and talk about Maki being unable to use cursed energy, which is why she uses cursed tools. She's also unable to see cursed energy. Her glasses allow her to see it. Nobara remembers that's why Yuji was also given a cursed tool. Nobara asks Maki why she wants to become a sorcerer if she can't use or see cursed energy, and she tells her that her family was used to belittle her because she wasn't able to use curse energy. She wants to become a great sorcerer to spite her family of gifted sorcerers. Elsewhere, Gojo arrives to meet with Principal Gakugange from Kyoto. Gojo thanks him for the other day, and the principal acts confused. Gojo then tells him he is referring to the Yuji Itadori incident, in which the student who happens to be Sukuna's vessel died. The principal claims to have no idea what he's talking about, and Gojo tells the old man to stop playing dumb. He believes that the principal is the head of the conservative group of sorcerers, and that he was involved in setting up the trap. While Gojo is disrespecting the principal, Kasumi Miwa, a student nearby, urges Gojo to mind his manners and says she will report him. He doesn't mind, and she excitedly blushes because Gojo spoke to her. Gojo reveals to the principal that he was attacked by 2 unregistered special grade curses. The principal doesn't care, and Gojo tells him not to get him wrong. It was like getting coerced into taking a tour of Tokyo, an easy task but annoying. Gojo explains that between Todo, Yuta Okotsu, and Yuji, Sukuna's vessel, there is a new wave of power that has grown bigger than the conservatives can handle. Soon they won't be able to measure the coming age of sorcerers and curses with special grade. The principal tells him that Gojo is getting out of line, but he brushes it off and tells him that's all he wanted to say and leaves. But then he re-enters and says that the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High, Principal Yaga, won't be arriving for another 2 hours. Gakuganji asks Miwa for tea, but instead she runs off to get a picture with Gojo. Meanwhile, at Takada-chan's personal handshake event, Toda receives a handshake from his favorite pop star and asks her for a Takatan beam. He is frozen in awe and is taken away. A month later, 3 heavy corpses are found in the Kinema Cinema movie theater. Mahito, one of the curses plotting to seal Gojo, is waiting in an alley. A young man comes and asks, "How did you do it?" And Mahito is shocked. He replies and says, "Wow, you're able to see me." And the next day, Yuji and another sorcerer approach the movie theater to investigate. Prior to Yuji's mission, a young student is getting bullied by his classmates at Satozakura High. His name is Junpei Yoshino. A student claims that Junpei was staring at their girlfriend's chest. Junpei doesn't want to get in a fight, so he accepts being bullied. But secretly he fantasizes that if he had a button that could kill everyone who hates him, he would push it without any hesitation. Later that day, Junpei skips his school to see Human Earthworm 3 at the movie theater. Unfortunately, the students that bullied him at school also happen to be there. Junpei recalls when he was bullied for looking at a girl's chest and he claimed that she is only using them for attention, and they listen because they want to hook up with her. When he points this out, the bullies beat him harder. The truth always hurts. The students are talking loudly in the theater, which annoys Junpei. Suddenly, Mahito, a cursed spirit, comes in and kills all of the bullies for making too much noise in the theater. Junpei walks down to investigate what happened to them, and he sees they have become monster corpses. He immediately leaves the theater and begins to track down Mahito. Junpei finds him in an alleyway and believes he is not a human. When he catches up to him, Junpei asks Mahito if there is any way he could do the things that he does. Back in the theater, the authorities hand over the investigation to Jujutsu sorcerers. Yuji and Grade 1 sorcerer Kento Nanami are investigating the theater. Nanami points out that when a cursed technique is used, the residuals are always left behind, but Yuji is not able to see it. Nanami tells him to focus. Yuji takes a moment and begins to see them after focusing. Nanami says a good sorcerer can sense it even before seeing it, and so he doesn't praise Yuji for being able to see them. Yuji is humiliated for not being able to sense it in the first place. Yuji suggests that they go all out, but Nanami argues there is no need to go all out. A moderate effort will be enough, which makes Yuji feel as though they're not getting along so far. Yuji recalls that Satoru trusted Yuji's training on this mission to his dear friend Nanami, the ex-banker sorcerer. Nanami believes that sorcerers are horrible, but working for a company is equally bad. Nanami has absolute trust in Gojo, but he doesn't respect him because he constantly breaks the rules and regulations. However, Nanami does not view Yuji as a full-fledged sorcerer. In the theater, Yuji and Nanami are following the residuals to the roof of the building. As they walk outside in the rain, a cursed spirit appears. Another one appears shortly after, so Nanami suggests that they should fight each cursed spirit separately. Yuji wants to show Nanami his abilities so that his teacher doesn't underestimate him. But Nanami feels that he is a child, and he still requires guidance and protection. Nanami tells Yuji, "You have faced several life or death situations, but it doesn't make you an adult. It is the losses that build up throughout life that make people grow into adults." Nanami fights the curse and divulges how his cursed technique works out loud. He explains that his technique allows him to forcibly create a weak point on any opponent and cause a critical hit. Yuji then says, "Are you talking to me?" But Nanami ignores him and continues explaining while fighting. Nanami teaches Yuji that revealing one's technique gives an advantage in a battle. It increases the effectiveness of one's abilities in battle. Nanami shows him by attacking the creature with a single slash of his sword. Yuji is now able to focus on his opponent as Nanami is finished speaking. Yuji shows off what he learned during his training. He is able to channel cursed energy effectively into his fists. During the training, Gojo taught Yuji that his cursed energy has a time lag, which allows him to turn one strike into 2 impacts. Yuji brings down his opponent by using his attack Divergent Fist. Nanami is quite impressed with his technique and admits that he can see what Gojo sees in Yuji. He silently appreciates Yuji and his room for growth. Nanami prepares to finish them off, but notices something suspicious. He takes a picture and shows it to Yuji. Yuji says the cursed spirit doesn't appear in photos and asks him why they are appearing. Nanami believes these creatures are not curses. He brings the curses to Shoko Ieri, who confirms that they are ex-humans who were mutated by a cursed technique in the same way the victims at the theater were. Shoko assures Yuji that they are not alive, and he shouldn't feel guilty about ending their existence. Yuji is enraged that so many people lost their lives, and Nanami is surprised to see his genuine feelings. Nanami decides to cheer him up. He reveals that their target manipulated the residuals to lead them into that trap, so now they'll have to use maximum effort to find the curse. And Yuji is ready. Meanwhile, Mahito takes Junpei to his hideout. He teaches him how curses manifest from the fears of humans. Humans not only fear yokai legends, but also natural disasters, which is why so many curses appear after a disaster. Mahito is born from the hatred that humans feel for each other. Meanwhile, Nanami explains to Yuji that he was able to find their target's hideout. However, he wants Yuji to follow the lead on Junpei, the only witness of the crime that happened in the theater. Yuji is joined by Ijichi while Nanami investigates the hideout. Yuji realizes that he hasn't met another assistant besides Ijichi, and Assistant Ijichi explains that he's the only one who knows he's alive. Yuji is about to leave and tells his teacher to be careful, and Nanami tells Yuji to stop calling him sensei. Yuji says he will call him Nanami, and Nanami says he will slap him. Earlier that day, Junpei is at his movie club at Satozakura High School with his ultra nerds. They're discussing the intricacies of various movies. Suddenly, they're interrupted by a few bullies who claim that this room is only for them to use. They demand Junpei and Team Nerd to leave, but as they are about to walk out, Junpei stops and tells the overgrown high schooler that he is stepping on his DVD and demands that he moves his foot. His friends tell him to let it go, as they are scared of the bullies. This irritates the bully and he kicks Junpei across the room. Junpei's friends run away in fear and the bully approaches Junpei. The bully smirks and orders his meatheads to shut the door and they begin to beat up Junpei. Later that day, Junpei meets with Mahito in the sewer, and the two discuss the difference between love and hate. After their conversation, Mahito shows him a few of his experiments and tells him he can change people's forms by using his cursed technique. He shows Junpei how large and small he can make human bodies. Junpei holds the small human nugget and isn't shocked at all, which surprises Mahito. But Junpei knows how repulsive human beings can be, so he is indifferent to holding the mini football. Mahito explains that human beings don't have hearts, which surprises Junpei. He continues saying that human beings have a soul at their core, not a heart. He also believes that there is no value or purpose to life, because life continuously flows like a cycle. Mahito explains that Junpei doesn't have to put an end to his hatred because the two of them can do whatever they want, and if he likes, Junpei can kill whoever he wants and take a dump wherever he wants. Later that day, Junpei is walking in the street and Yuji and Ijichi spot him as they drive slowly behind him. Yuji asks Ijichi how his classmates are doing, and simultaneously at Jujutsu High, Nobara is getting punished by Panda. Ijichi says that from what he hears, they're doing quite well. Ijichi gives Yuji his assignment. He has to use a weak cursed spirits known as flyheads to test Junpei's talent for Jujutsu and his possible connection to the theater incident. They devise 4 plans, and depending upon the outcome of their test using the flyhead, they will know how to deal with Junpei. Option 1. If Junpei is not able to see the curse, Yuji will catch the flyhead and save him. 2. If Junpei is able to see it but doesn't attack, Yuji will still catch the flyhead and then question Junpei. Option 3. If Junpei attacks the flyhead, Yuji will restrain Junpei using force and question him. However, if Junpei's powers are equal to a grade 2 sorcerer, then they will retreat. Yuji thinks he can handle a grade 2 sorcerer, but Ijichi explains that grade 2 sorcerers have equal power to a grade 1 curse. Therefore, according to the rules, Yuji should only be allowed to challenge grade 3 sorcerers. Yuji wonders why he wasn't told that before, and Ijichi thinks to himself that it's because his teacher, Satoru Gojo, is a moron. While this is occurring, Nanami enters Mahito's underground hideout and casually says, "If you're planning to come out, please hurry up and do so." Mahito appears out of the darkness and says he's quite happy that it's him and not Satoru Gojo. Nanami replies that he wants to get this over quickly because he has been working since 10 in the morning and doesn't like to work overtime. They begin to fight, and Nanami notices that Mahito has similarities to Gojo. They share a textbook superficiality with dark strength behind it. Nanami is able to break Mahito's arm with his technique, catching him off guard. Mahito is amazed to see that Nanami actually hit him since he blocked it with cursed energy, but he isn't too worried about it. While Mahito is talking, Nanami realizes that this special grade curse spirit can speak quite well, and must be connected to the special grade curse that Gojo fought. Mahito asks Nanami if the body or the soul came first. Nanami says the body, but Mahito claims that the soul exists before the body and the soul shapes the body. By changing the shape of his own soul and others, he can change their form using his innate technique, idle transfiguration. Nanami looks at his watch and says it is 5:30. Since he started at 10 in the morning, he says he will be quitting at 6, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, Junpei walks past his overweight teacher Sotomura, sitting outside. He says he shouldn't be skipping school, and asks him if he heard about his friends that were killed at the movies, meaning the bullies. Junpei can't believe how stupid he is. He remembers Mahito's words and nearly attacks him. But Yuji suddenly appears, catching the fly head that Ijichi released on accident, not knowing that there was a teacher there. Yuji realizes that Junpei can see the cursed spirit and wants to talk to Junpei, but Sotomura keeps on interfering. As the teacher is yelling, Yuji decides to pants him and runs away with his pants. Sotomura runs behind him, and Yuji appears from the back of the street 2 seconds later, and Junpei is shocked. He asks him if he already ran around the block, and Yuji says yeah. Junpei asks him why Yuji didn't just drag him off, and Yuji says it's because he could tell Junpei didn't like that man. Junpei is pleasantly surprised and agrees to go on a walk with Yuji. Meanwhile, Nanami and Mahito continue to battle underground. Nanami manages to dodge all of the transfigured humans that Mahito uses. One of the transfigured humans speaks to Nanami and says, "Help me." Nanami recalls the words of the Jujutsu doctor, and Mahito says that he's been trying not to make his toys die right away, but to not let it worry him. Nanami replies and says that it doesn't bother him. He doesn't bring personal feelings to his workplace. Mahito denies it, saying, "You suck at lying." Mahito then asks him what grade he is, and Nanami tells him that he is a grade 1 sorcerer. Mahito says that Nanami will make a perfect test subject and dashes toward him, taking Nanami off guard in an attempt to reshape his soul. Nanami manages to protect himself by using cursed energy. Nanami is injured but not transfigured. Mahito says, "I know Jujutsu sorcerers use cursed energy to protect themselves from being attacked, but a few more hits will be enough to cease your existence as a human." Nanami flees down the sewer tunnel to stall and looks at his watch. Mahito says, "It looks like you are almost out of time." Nanami is annoyed and tells Mahito that thanks to him he has to work overtime. Nanami's cursed energy suddenly begins to increase, surprising Mahito. Mahito realizes that he has used a time-based technique to limit his energy in order to increase his power once he goes into overtime. Nanami rushes at Mahito, deciding that he has 2 options. He can continue to attack Mahito until he runs out of his cursed energy, but decides that this is dangerous and not sustainable. This means he will go with option number 2 and attempt to crush him with one blow by using his full force. Nanami then strikes one of the walls by using his ratio technique, Collapse. The curse technique is so powerful that Nanami's punch breaks the wall with a shockwave of his cursed energy. Mahito is in awe and decides that it's a good idea to avoid this attack, but suddenly Nanami cuts his leg off. The sorcerer then tells Mahito that he's retreating, and if Mahito manages to stay alive, they will fight again someday. Mahito is confused, but shortly after, the rocks from the wall land on him and crush him. Meanwhile, Yuji is with Junpei sitting outside on a set of stairs close to a river. Junpei asks if the ground had shaken and thinks it's an earthquake. Yuji tries to contact Ijichi, but he's busy trying to catch the other flyhead. The pants bandit wonders if it's okay to reveal things about the Jujutsu world to Junpei. Junpei then notices the swirly button on his uniform and recalls Mahito telling him that if he ever meets someone with such a swirly button, that person is a Jujutsu sorcerer and he should act friendly with him. But he's confused because the sorcerers are Mahito's enemies. Yuji decides to be straightforward with Junpei and asks him about what happened at the movie theater. Junpei denies this by saying he didn't see anything and has only been able to see curses recently. Yuji immediately believes him and asks if it's okay if he sticks around until Ijichi shows up. He sits down with Junpei and asks what movie was playing. Junpei tells him, and Yuji says that the movie sucked and that he got punched so many times while watching, which confuses Junpei. Geto watches them from above and is satisfied that they made a link with Yuji. The boys realize they have similar tastes when suddenly, Junpei's mother, Nagi Yoshino, arrives, meets with them, and invites Yuji to dinner. Geto travels underground to find Mahito. He is impressed by the state Nanami left things in. Mahito comes out from the rubble, happy to have learned much more about himself from the battle. Meanwhile, Ijichi is finally able to catch the flyhead and calls Yuji, but he says he is having dinner with Junpei and hangs up. He is worried that the adult of the adults will find out that he left Yuji out with Junpei. Suddenly, Nanami calls him and asks him to drive him to Jujutsu High so his wounds can be treated. Ijichi freaks out and tells him he will pick him up as he picks up Yuji. Nanami is angry that he's not with Yuji, and Ijichi realizes that he shouldn't have said that. While Ijichi is on his way, Nanami thinks to himself that Mahito is dangerous. He is a young cursed spirit and is learning more and more about what he is capable of. At Junpei's house, Yuji and Junpei are getting along quite well. They talk and eat, and Yuji makes them laugh until Junpei's mother falls asleep from drinking too much. Junpei remembers how his mother once let him skip school and told him that there's a whole world out there. School is just an aquarium. He smiles at his fondness of his mom and asks Yuji about his mom. Yuji says he never really knew her and that he only has a few memories of his dad. Junpei is sad upon hearing this when Ijichi calls Yuji and tells him he's here to pick him up. Before Yuji leaves, Junpei asks him if he is a Jujutsu sorcerer and what he would do if he were forced to kill someone. Yuji tells him that he is, and says that no matter how much bad a person has done, he would not try to kill them, because then the value of life would become even more unclear to Yuji. As he leaves, Junpei thinks about how people don't have hearts, but there are also good people in this world like Yuji and his mother. So if killing someone means tainting his soul, he will never kill anyone. That night, Junpei's mother wakes up at her dining room table and finds one of Sukuna's fingers, which draws a curse to her and ends her life. Nanami explains what happened to Yuji, and Yuji is furious. Nanami prepares to make a move on Mahito, but Nanami doesn't want Yuji to be forced into killing transfigured humans. Yuji angrily tells Nanami that he thinks Yuji would just get in his way. Yuji doesn't want his partner to die, but Nanami just asks him to continue trailing Junpei, as Mahito is trying to mislead the boy. Back at Junpei's house, Mahito feeds hatred into Junpei's broken heart and points the blame towards Shota, the student that bullied Junpei at school. Mahito hints that he planted the finger in Junpei's house to curse him. Later that day, Junpei returns to school filled with hatred, vowing that everyone will know what real pain is. Mahito and Geto are watching from a distance as Mahito casts a curtain over the school. Their plan is to leverage Yuji into making a binding vow with Sukuna using Junpei. They were the ones that placed Sukuna's finger at Junpei's home in the first place. Mahito asks Geto if he's okay with leaving the finger, and Geto explains that it's all a part of his plan and wants Jujutsu High to find the finger. As Geto leaves, Junpei enters the auditorium and all of the students are passed out except Shota and Junpei's teacher, Sotomura. Junpei asks Shota if he's the one who put the finger in his home, but Shota has no idea what he's talking about. Junpei uses his jujutsu to poison Shota's skin and asks him if he's an idiot for answering his question with his own question. And Shoto asks what makes him think he can answer his question with a question about the question that he just questioned. As Junpei is about to kill him, Yuji enters the auditorium and yells at Junpei to stop, but Junpei only tells him to back off. Yuji chases Junpei and attacks his jellyfish, Shikigami Moon Dregs. It absorbs the impact of Yuji's punches and protects Junpei as he hides inside of it. Junpei continues to tell him to stay out of it and says that people don't have hearts. Squidward then tries to bind Yuji with its tentacles. Junpei learned Jujutsu from Mahito. He taught him how to summon Shikigami with a poised cursed technique so that he can control his cursed energy. Yuji reaches out of the mass of jellyfish and grabs Junpei from behind. He runs away, but Yuji punches the Shikigami into Junpei, throwing them out of the window. Outside, as Junpei recovers, he remembers his mother and tells Yuji to stop interfering. Yuji jumps down and the jellyfish tries to use its stingers to pierce him, but he counters and punches Junpei back inside. Yuji says everything he is saying is just an excuse, and not one worth throwing his life away for. Yuji insists he would never say these things to his mother, but Junpei insists that people don't have hearts. If people did have hearts, they wouldn't have cursed him and his mother. Junpei is filled with hatred and doesn't know what's right or wrong. Teen Angst uses his Shikigami to attack. Yuji allows his stingers to pierce his body when Moondregs is suddenly dispelled. Yuji uses his words to console his friend and promises to take him to Jujutsu High, make him a skilled sorcerer, and promise to find the person that killed his mother. Right on time, Mahito comes down the school stairs and interrupts. Yuji doesn't recognize Mahito and hesitates when Mahito suddenly pins Yuji to the wall by reshaping his arm, and Yuji realizes it is the same curse Nanami warned him about. Yuji pleads with Junpei to run away regardless of how he knows Mahito. Junpei insists that Mahito isn't bad, but he realizes he was wrong all along. Mahito places his hand on Junpei's shoulder. Mahito whispers in his ears that he is foolish, and that's why he will die. The special grade curse uses idle transfiguration on Junpei and turns him into a transfigured human. He forces him to fight Yuji. Yuji doesn't know what to do and asks for Sukuna's help to heal Junpei, just like he healed his heart. But Sukuna denies him. Mahito is surprised, thinking that Sukuna would want to create a pact that's in his favor. But Mahito is unaware that Sukuna has already done so, and Yuji has lost memory of that event. Mahito wonders what will come next, and he and Sukuna share a sinister laughter that angers Yuji. Yuji realizes that these people are just curses. Junpei says, "Help me," as his transfigured body dies. Yuji dreams of having Junpei as his classmate, while Mahito laughs that Junpei died from being mutated so aggressively. An enraged Yuji delivers a powerful punch that smashes Mahito's face. The curse recovers, explaining that physical attacks don't work on him, but his nose suddenly bleeds. Mahito realizes that two souls exist within Yuji's body, so he can naturally perceive the soul's contours. Yuji is filled with the negative energy of wrath and pain and says he will kill Mahito, to which the curse replies that he should say, "Exorcise" instead. Yuji attacks Mahito, but he dodges it by changing the shape of his body. His goal is to fight with Yuji until he realizes that he can't win, making him rely on Sukuna and create a binding vow. They want to get Sukuna on their side. As they fight with each other, both sorcerer and curse deduce how they can kill each other. Yuji prepares to pound Mahito continuously so he can't recover, and Mahito changes his arms into blades. Mahito slashes through the building, causing Yuji to jump outside and fires a drill at him. Yuji catches the flesh, but it grows spikes, injuring Yuji's hands. Yuji refuses to let go and throws Mahito to the ground. As they exchange blows at a close range, Mahito pierces Yuji's body with spikes from his own body. He attempts to touch Yuji's soul to make him switch with Sukuna. However, Sukuna takes this as an insult and warns Mahito that he should know his place. He will only forgive him once because they laughed together, but won't forgive him again. Back in reality, Yuji says he won't switch, but he will kill Mahito. He headbutts Mahito's face repeatedly and appears to have the upper hand. As Yuji is about to finish him, Mahito suddenly dashes behind Yuji and nearly takes his head off. But Nanami arrives in the nick of time and deflects Mahito's attack. Nanami says he'll lecture Yuji another time and asks for an update. Yuji reveals that he couldn't save two people, but Nanami is more worried about him. Yuji says he only has a few holes in his body, so he's fine, and Nanami scoffs and says that clearly isn't fine. Nanami notices Mahito bleeding from his nose and asks how this happened. Yuji says, I punched him, making Nanami realize that Yuji is the key to this fight since his own attacks don't work on him. He also realizes that for some reason Mahito cannot touch Yuji's soul, which means he won't be able to transfigure him. Together they can create openings for each other to fight and defeat the curse. Nanami tells Yuji that they must exorcise the curse here and now. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Jujutsu Kaisen. If you want to find out what happens next, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Panorama Anime, and comment for the next episode.